Smurf Fu. Oh yes, this episode from the Smurfs for 2021 rocks. This episode starts some Smurfs ring the village bell, which alerts Clumsy and Dimwitty as members of the Smurf Village Fire Brigade to awaken and get into their fire truck immediately. They drive through the Smurf village, stopping once only to ask directions and narrowly avoiding a collision with Lazy out on the street, until they reach their destination, which is outside the village near the woods. Apparently, a snake has eaten Brainy, but fortunately hasn't digested him yet. Clumsy and Dimwitty pull out their fire truck ladder and prepare to pull Brainy out by opening the snake's mouth, but the snake ends up swallowing both Smurfs. Hefty decides to take matters into his own hands and hops onto the snake's head, trying to pry the snake's mouth open, but instead gets blown off by a sneeze. Enter Smurfette, who wears a red jumpsuit, who confidently says "I got this." Hefty tries to dissuade Smurfette from tackling the snake, saying that he couldn't get the snake to open its mouth. Nobody could. Smurfette makes a few quick jumps, and then with her heel pointed outward, makes a kicking move toward the snake's side, which makes the snake's head bulge. She goes under the snake and gives it another kick, making its head bulge even bigger. Then Smurfette thrusts her pointing finger toward the belly of the snake, and the snake ends up vomiting Brainy, Clumsy, and Dimwitty safely out, covered only in slime. Smurfette bows and says "You're welcome" as the snake slithers onward, otherwise unharmed. Hefty, who was amazed, wonders how Smurfette was able to do all that. Smurfette shows him a book she was reading, 10 Lessons of Smurf Fu, and tells Hefty that she felt it was high time she learned how to defend herself. A few Smurfs gather around Smurfette, pleading for Smurfette to teach them what she has learned. Smurfette says that it's not for everyone, that it requires real discipline and commitment, which makes Smurfette ask them if they really want to learn. They say yes, and so Smurfette says that class starts now. Immediately, the Smurfs join Smurfette in a run through the forest, leaping over rocks and branches, though Smurfette stops when she sees one Smurf helping another by lifting up a branch. Smurfette tells them they can't do that, asking them what they would do if they were alone in the forest, to which one of the Smurfs says they're never alone, but Smurfette again asks what if they were alone. Back in the village, Smurfette leads a class of a few dozen Smurfs on some important lessons of Smurf Fu. Their first lesson is learning how to hold a particular pose which has them standing on one foot while raising the other upward, which the other Smurfs tried to copy but were mostly unsuccessful. Jokey tries to inject a bit of humor by having Dimwitty open one of his surprises, but Smurfette says that Smurf Fu requires mental fortitude and discipline, and then she kicks Jokey out of her class. Smurfette shows the class how to do the horse rider pose, which some Smurfs struggle to copy, but Farmer eventually gets it, though he lets off a little gas while doing so, knocking a few Smurfs out with his fumes, and so Smurfette kicks Farmer out of her class. Over the course of the class session, Smurfette kicks out a few Smurfs for cheating on doing push-ups, catches a few other Smurfs for cheating on pull-ups, sees another Smurf get stuck in a kicking pose, catches a few Smurfs swinging on sandbags while Hefty is busy punching his, and has Clumsy and Dimwitty carry a few more Smurfs out on a stretcher when they fall off the logs they were supposed to stand and balance upon. With only a few Smurfs left in her class, Smurfette then says that they should now apply what they have learned. Handy then causes a bunch of targets to appear up from the floor, which Smurfette manages to knock down one by one without fail. Scaredy goes and tries to knock down a target, but when a target is raised up from the floor, it scares Scaredy enough that he runs away. Hefty goes and knocks down one target, but another target ends up raising, catapulting Hefty out of the practice arena. Dimwitty out of his fire brigade goes and finds himself surrounded by a wall of targets, making him cry out for help, which a few Smurfs end up doing, much to Smurfette's chagrin. Lazy says he needs a break, but Smurfette says there's no getting tired in her class if they want to survive, and if they don't want to learn, then they should quit. Smurfette watches as the rest of her students depart, with Grouchy saying that he doesn't like Smurf Fu. Hefty then asks Smurfette if she's okay, and Smurfette says she's worried because someone won't always be there to get those Smurfs out of trouble. Hefty says that there will always be someone there to help because they're Smurfs, but Smurfette disagrees. Meanwhile, some disgruntled Smurfs from Smurfette's Smurf Fu class complain that Smurfette didn't even give them a chance. Jokey is then inspired with an idea, which Dimwitty unintentionally gave him. And so late at night, while Smurfette is sleeping, Jokey, Dimwitty, Greedy, and another Smurf sneak up to the window of her house and release a spider into her bedroom. The Smurfs wait by a well, hoping that Smurfette will scream when she sees the spider and come running out of her house, and then they can rescue her from the spider and become heroes. Soon the door opens and there is a scream, but it is from the spider, who screams as it is kicked out of Smurfette's house toward the Smurfs waiting by the well. The Smurfs panic and start running around here and there, which makes Smurfette get up and ask what those Smurfs were doing there and why they are screaming. The Smurfs deny that they were screaming and then just rush off, leaving Smurfette wondering. In the morning, the same four Smurfs convene in the forest to find another way to scare Smurfette, and Dimwitty brings along Big Mouth the ogre, whom he says won't eat them because he already ate. Big Mouth says that he ate a horse, and then spits out the horseshoe before what he ate settles in his stomach. And then he says that he's hungry. This makes the Smurfs panic and start to run, but Big Mouth catches 3 of the 4 Smurfs and walks off with them while the 4th Smurf runs back to the village and rings the village bell to alert the other Smurfs. Papa Smurf and Smurfette gather around while that Smurf tells them what had happened. Papa Smurf says that they need to form a rescue party. Smurfette says they're just mad at her for pushing them so hard and that they're playing another trick to try scaring her. The Smurf confesses that the whole thing is true, but Smurfette isn't convinced and tells Papa Smurf that she'll handle this thing by herself. Papa Smurf says that he's sending the other Smurf with Smurfette to go rescue the captured Smurfs. Then as they leave, Clumsy and Dimwitty, see below, show up at the bell in their fire truck, wondering where the fire is. Out on the forest, Smurfette sees that their captor has left some big footprints and decides that she's going to handle this situation by herself since she's a Smurf Fu master. Despite the other Smurfs' suggestion that they should go get Papa Smurf and the others. In the tower that Big Mouth lives, the ogre is busy preparing to eat the 3 Smurfs in a Smurf sandwich with honey and mayonnaise slathered on the bread slices and was about to eat them when Smurfette gets Big Mouth's attention. The ogre turns and sees Smurfette challenging him to a fight, saying that it's just her and him, and then she proceeds to launch a kick attack to the ogre's face. However, the ogre immediately catches Smurfette like a fly swatted in midair with his hands and she ends up being another ingredient in the ogre's sandwich. Big Mouth again tries to take a bite out of his sandwich when he feels rocks being pelted at his face. He turns and sees that the other Smurfs have come armed with slingshots, and another volley of rocks causes Big Mouth to fling his sandwich in the air, making those Smurfs scream until they land bread side up. The other Smurfs launch another volley of rocks at the ogre, and soon Smurfette and the other Smurfs make their varied attacks on Big Mouth, eventually causing him to fall unconscious to the ground as a pot is dropped on his head. The Smurfs cheer at the defeat of Big Mouth, and Smurfette tells Hefty that it's nice to depend on your friends as part of a team. Then Greedy comes eating a glob of honey and mayonnaise and says that they aren't such a bad combination after all, which makes the other Smurfs laugh. And that's how the episode is. So, Smurf Fu rocks. And so does Baby Sensei. Smurfing places sucks. End of salute.